The part where he says he doesn't want to be Singapore Prime Minister, he says it very emphatically at the end of the podcast. And I think with the context of everything you hear about what he sees as the opposition's role and WP's role, it makes sense, right?
Like, if I were to ask myself, do I want another Prime Minister at this point? I will say no.
You sucking on the dick
So
of
I'm
baby. Do I want another Prime Minister? No.
But one thing, we speak about, Pritam being measured, risk-averse, the strategy. But then why he go on Malaysian podcast? He cannot step out of his GRC, but can step out of Singapore to go do podcast. Huh, Pritam? Why? So we are big fans of live events because there's something very special about face-to-face interactions. And coming up this October is a huge event for anyone interested in e-commerce, digital marketing, and the people actually shaping the future of retail. It's an event that we were part of 2 years ago, and it's the 6th edition of eCommerce Expo Asia. And for the first time, DMEXCO, Europe's top digital marketing event, is going to be part of it. So this is Asia's most important show of this kind, and it's happening 8th to 9th October at MBS. There'll be speakers from TikTok, Zalora, Amazon, Carousel, Puma, StarHub, and more, sharing real-world strategies on AI, omnichannel, CX, and going global. Now, registration is free and it's all happening on a brand new premium floor at MBS. The link is in the show notes, so please go check it out. And we might even see you there. And now, on to the podcast. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala, your thrice weekly podcast where we talk about hottest news with a touch of what, Terrence?
Good old humor.
Good old humor, man.
Yeah.
Third episode of the week. How's the week, man?
Pretty exhausting week. Today we're coming up to the final day of Happy Ever After Party.
Yeah.
It's been very very long. Like campaign period lah, nine shows. 9 days, we got 9 shows. Perfect, right?
Yeah, exactly. 9 shows like this, yeah. Then tomorrow is cooling off day lah. Tomorrow cooling off day.
But it's over lah. After tonight, it's over.
Yeah.
A lot of, I think, happy memories.
Yeah.
And I think the nerves really hit me in the last couple of days when we were trying some new material as well.
Yeah.
But it's pretty exciting lah to go through that roller coaster of emotions.
And
the most beautiful part of it, I find, is that the way we are grappling with words, right? In day-to-day life, at work, whatever, a word, 2 words, a paragraph, a lot of it doesn't matter these days, ChatGPT. But when you're trying to refine a sentence to say in front of hundreds of people and to make sure it has that kind of impact, right, that you want it to have. And when it does, when it hits, wow, you're like all those hours spent agonizing over a word. It's amazing.
Yeah, and kudos to you. You tweaked yesterday, then when your joke hit, could feel
it's the feel,
the feel.
The weight lifted off your shoulders.
And I mean, that's where you hear comedians say that the cadence of how you say words, because literally, whether it's or our, this or they, and all, it really impacts lah.
Yeah.
So quite interesting. And tonight's show is, I think, almost sold out.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, amazing.
So to everyone who came, thank you all so much. To everyone who's coming, by the time you listen to this, you may have already watched it. I hope you enjoy it lah.
Yeah.
But the show must go on.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. We have topics to talk about. And before that, we just want to say that if you're new or old to the podcast, please follow us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit.
Yeah.
Our newsletter where we post other formats of content. And it's a good time.
Yeah. And if you want to work with us, email us at contact@ministryoffunny.com or just go to ministryoffunny.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So
this first topic, this one is everyone's talking about it, and it happened sort of very unexpectedly, right? While we've been very busy and almost like where the podcast wasn't foremost on our minds this week, right?
Yeah,
Although we are still churning it out, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's something that we are literally in the process of trying to lock down also. It is the appearance of Pritam Singh, leader of the opposition from the Workers' Party, on one of the biggest podcasts in Malaysia called Keluar Sekejap. Which is political in nature.
Yes.
So for context, this video came out on June 24th. Right now, I mean, a decent 120k views. And Keluar Sekejap is a podcast, Malaysian podcast, that was actually started by 2 ex-politicians. It's hosted by, it is hosted by Khairi Jamaluddin, known as KJ, and Sharil Hamdan. So in the video, Khairil Jamaluddin is the one with the ponytail lah.
Yep.
So
that's right.
KJ. So I mean, they've had people like Mahathir, Ismail Yaakob, Pritam Singh, the governor of Jakarta, and I mean, been going on since 2023.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite a big following and all. Like, had you heard of them before?
No, not prior to this. I mean, I think probably mentioned in the people talk about like good podcasts that talk about politics in Malaysia. It's definitely one of them. Yeah.
I mean, primarily Malay, which is why when you watch the Pritam podcast, they do introduce the reasons why they are bringing on a leader from another country. But I mean, they both speak very well. Just a brief history. They were both in UMNO, but they were both dismissed or not say kicked out or sacked, but dismissed from the United Malays National Organization, which is UMNO.
Yeah.
And they were inspired by a podcast that we have reference to, The Rest is Politics, which are hosted by two people who were also expelled from their parties in the UK.
Yeah.
So they both held senior positions. KJ was a former UMNO youth chief, and Sharil was there for quite a while, and then he was dismissed for 6 years. But then now they are full on in this podcast.
And KJ was even Minister of Health at one point for Malaysia.
That's why he said Ong Ye Kang, my counterpart.
Former counterpart.
Former counterpart. Yeah. So I mean, both very well educated.
Yeah.
And very, very like at senior positions.
Yeah.
So they had this podcast.
Yeah.
It was like 1 hour, 49 minutes. I mean, a podcast worth watching.
I mean, the last time we spoke about this, I think there were the smell of sour grapes in the room.
I was, and I still am salty.
I mean, I think we both are. It's not just you.
Correct.
And I think non-stop your phone's been blowing up when we've been getting DMs or Reddit comments about, hey, how come you can't get Pritam on your podcast? Pritam were a Malaysian podcast first.
Yeah.
Right?
Then got people on Reddit say cannot because we suck on the teeth of the PAP.
Oh, yes. I saw that yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that people online are jumping on to defend us, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily in terms of tribalism or offense or what, but just being objective. Like, someone used ChatGPT to pull up which PAP ministers have been on and which of our podcasts have been sponsored by government or government entities. But then someone on the other side then say, hey, let's pull up the opposition people who have been on the podcast. To show that there is balance.
Yeah. And I mean, hopefully we do get Pritam on because if you're new to the podcast, when we were recording during GE, there was a very wonderful moment where he was in the background when we were recording at Serangoon Gardens, where he said, implied that after the election he'll come on.
Yeah.
So we'll make it happen.
And he, I think someone commented on his post asking how come he didn't come on Yalla Butt, even though he promised. And I think he said that in due time it will happen. And he related a story of how we actually shared a Yalla Butt sticker with
someone from our team, his daughter.
So that was pretty nice.
Yeah. But I mean, the podcast has received some mainstream media attention in Singapore. A couple of articles written on Straits Times, CNA and Mothership. So the Straits Times headline is WP wants to be insurance, in quotes, for Singapore should PAP suffer major malfunction. Pritam in Malaysian podcast. And for CNA is Workers' Party Chief Pritam Singh says he does not want to be Singapore Prime Minister. And Mothership is Singapore government takes multiracialism very seriously. Approach is a work in progress. WP is Pritam Singh on Malaysia's Khairi's podcast.
Yep.
So I mean, what do you make of these titles, how they were pitched? And basically, what did you take away from the podcast first and foremost?
I think the podcast is pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? And given that it's Pritam's first really long-form interview. No, I think even mainstream media hasn't had this level of long-form interviews. So it's very interesting hearing how he thinks. And I think the mainstream media really pulled out the parts that I think are the most interesting to Singaporeans. The part where he says he doesn't want to be Singapore Prime Minister, he says it very emphatically at the end of the podcast. And I think with the context of everything you hear about what he sees as the opposition's role and WP's role, it makes sense, right? But of course, because this is pulled up as the headline, people who don't have the time to listen to a 1 hour, 49-minute podcast might think that it's a lack of ambition, right? And granted, for me, not having listened to the podcast, when I heard people discussing this particular issue about him saying that he doesn't want to be Singapore Prime Minister, in my mind I was like, the elections are over already. Why would you? What are we still playing to an electorate, right? Shouldn't there be some measure of showing ambition for Workers' Party to go beyond just a 1/3 minority in parliament and all that, right? And RDU in recent times, Ravi Philemon has talked about forming a shadow government. Not that not that Workers' Party needs to follow what other opposition people are saying, but in some sense, I was thinking, shouldn't we want to hear of a longer term leadership strategy for Workers' Party that could see, Workers' Party eventually take over PAP one day?
Yeah.
But I mean, for you, like, what do you make of these headlines that the mainstream media was saying?
I mean, similar. Of course, you would expect whenever Pritam goes to any podcast, they will jump on everything that he says. Because, I mean, he is the leader of opposition. The insurance for Singapore, when it's phrased like that, I was like, okay lah. Then, like how someone is okay with being the backup. You always think like, same thing, lack of ambition lah. You're like, hey, what is this? You want to be backup this, backup that? No, sometimes you need to step up.
Yeah.
Right. The whole thing about WP is stepping up.
Yeah.
And even in a personal life, people are always lauded for stepping up.
Yeah.
If you just back up, then you're like, what was the beta? Is it?
Man on the side kind of thing.
Man on the side. Yeah. You side chick, Pritam.
So many times last time when dating all that, you there needs to be a certain point where you're like, okay, enough of this BS of like blue ticks and non-replies.
You cannot just be in the orbit, you cannot just be in the orbit. The guy that the girl always cries after she gets dumped and hoping that, no, you have to make a move, to be the prime candidate, right?
Yeah. Either make a move or don't move at all. Or like, you're not replying to WhatsApp messages immediately and everything. To give it a little bit of period of time so they know that you are busy, you have your own priorities.
Correct. So you move in or you move on. So then, I mean, the mothership was more about, some of the topics that were discussed. But after listening to it, and I mean, even before listening to it, like, I was also reading some comments, because even people like Bertha Hansen were saying that, the WP should get out of being PAP light and be something. And I think kind of said that WP needs to decide whether it wants to be a better version of PAP or whether it's something more.
Yeah.
So when I was reading comments like that, and I was thinking, I actually don't think that it's wrong or bad that Pritam says he doesn't want to be PAP. And when I listened to the podcast, the more I felt, I can see where he's coming from. And I don't kind of take that away from, take it as got no ambition. Yeah. And for you, like, I'm assuming as you listen to the podcast also, you got that.
I understand where he's coming from. And you take a page from what Heng Swee Keat said before. Heng Swee Keat, I think the Mandela effect, or at least what everyone, who hasn't followed politics very closely, they think that, Heng Swee Keat or the PAP said directly that Singapore cannot have a non-Chinese PM, right? Which is actually a fallacy, because what was actually said by Heng Swee Keat at, I think, a university forum was that from the information and the polls and reading the pulse on the ground, Singaporeans say they're not ready for non-Chinese PM. I know people argue it's a small difference, but it does. But basically what he's saying is that the politicians attributing it to the pulse on the ground, what people are telling him. And in some sense, that's what Pritam Singh does here as well. He says that he has his pulse on the ground, and he understands that people will not respond well to someone saying that I want to take over as Prime Minister one day, And that's the party line. And again, also as we want PAP to be in charge, right? WP as the co-drivers. And so that's what they have agreed that they're going to do as a whole party, right? So I do understand the political rationale for it, right? But again, sometimes I do wonder, what is the longer term strategy of the Workers' Party beyond just getting to 30%, and then after that being a co-driver that slaps the driver when he sleeps, right? Because I mean, if anything, you would say the PAP. I think he mentioned it in this. They ran a very tight campaign, right?
Yeah.
Changed world, fresh team, new resolve, right? So there's whatever you want to say about it. At least there's a vision. There's a longer term vision for that. Whereas I do feel like listening to him here, I get the justification, but I also get the sense that it's very reactive to what the PAP does or says, as opposed to like this is our own long-term vision for the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, because like the one thing that I think we were criticizing the PAP for, and even WP to a certain extent, was the stuff they are planning is either so far out that you're like, but there were no steps to get there, and it was more like, a bit to the left. Contrast with SDP, where it was really like free healthcare, free education. And to a certain extent, you listen to that, you're like, oh shit, that's actually kind of interesting. And I mean, not to say that we have to go down that path, but it makes you open your mind to that. And then when you look back at what we are and where we're heading towards, it gives you a different lens. And that's something that WP doesn't do. Yeah, I never listened to this thing and I'm like, oh shit, that's a very different thing. How does that make me look at what the status quo is and feel like, hey, actually, we are totally different and this is the way. So credit to SDP. I mean, PSP not so much. Of course, the other parties like, well, RDU is like, I don't know what kind of world that is. But that is where maybe it is not, say, lack of ambition, but it's how you say, it's more of the same but a bit less.
Yeah.
And it feels like that is his strategy, because he did say also that right now, and KJ alluded to something they discussed when they met for coffee in Singapore a few years ago, where Pritam said the same thing. I don't want to be PM. Because Pritam said right now his goal is to get to 30%. Because that stops any amendment to the constitution passing like by supermajority. Then I was thinking, let's say you join a corporate, right? Do you need to want to be the CEO to be damn good at your job? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Right. I think the older I get, the more I'm like, I don't want to be a CEO of like a 50,000 people company, but I want to be damn good at what we do.
Yeah.
So can you fault a politician for also thinking about his short-term strategy as that? Right.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe the election results bear them out, right? Where Workers' Party consolidated in the so-called strongholds that it now has, Sengkang, Hougang, and Aljunied, right? But there was also the question of like stepping out of Aljunied and taking a risk, which I think some people, we've alluded to, whether it's Marine Parade or Tampines or Punggol also, right? Where maybe they could have sent a stronger candidate in the sense of like Sylvia Lim or even Pritam himself in one of these places and really wrest control of it from PAP. Okay, maybe not lack of ambition per se, but in terms of just like going big or going home, right? In this
like what Low Tia Kiang did.
Like what Low Tia Kiang did, and there was the watershed election, right? As a lot of people mentioned, and I think hindsight is 2020, but there really were places where we felt like Jalan Kayu SMC or what, where something could have happened or something could have flipped, and we were that close, right? And if our most credible opposition doesn't take those risks and also demonstrate to us that if you really believe in what you're fighting for, is worth putting all your eggs in that basket and fight and going for that, right? Then it's sort of again that criticism of PAP light, you're just like going with the flow, and then you're doing what PAP does, just asking for a little bit more, or a little bit step to the left. You'll never escape that criticism.
Yeah. But would you? So as an individual, how do you feel about this WP approach? Because by and large, it feels like they are a little risk averse. Of course, by being in opposition already, you are taking a big risk. But on the spectrum of risk aversion, I think they're quite risk averse, quite conservative, quite like let's chip away rather than try and whack a sledgehammer into something. How does that approach make you feel?
Okay, of course, in the last couple of days, I've had the experience where confidence very shaken, right? Confidence very shaken by maybe I think I bombed a joke on stage at one point, right? And then I think after that, yesterday my confidence was very shaken about that particular joke, and it took me a while to really get through it. Even though we've done it so many times before, and almost everything else is muscle memory, but there was just one particular joke I just couldn't get past, right? And I feel that maybe that for Pritam Singh, the Raisa Khan saga and everything that ensued from it might have been that thing that sort of like that just hanging over his head, right? I mean, they allude a little bit to it. It's still an appeals process, so obviously you can't talk about it. But I think even on this podcast, we said that maybe the most generous thing we can say about Pritam Singh from the whole Raisa Khan thing is a sign of weak leadership, right? If not, we're not even talking about being lying in Parliament or lying to a committee of privilege or anything, but just generally the management of the whole situation was just very suspect, right? As an organization and everything. So maybe that really shook, I don't know, maybe I'm just speculating, but maybe it did shake that confidence in just going out there and just, taking bold risks like that quite a bit and I think we talked about it, whether it was Marine Parade, right, or even stepping out for Tampines or Punggol or any one of these places, or Jalan Kayu also, right. Maybe that's where, because of everything that happened and in those few years since Raisa Khan, has made them, okay, we got to, hunker down, make sure we hold on to our strongholds first before we go out and take it. Because there's one very quite illuminating part where he talked about the 2011 elections, right, where there was they had this inkling that it was going to be positive for them, but they never dared to be too confident or celebratory about it also, right? So that maybe that sense of being more prudent in how you go about things and whether you take big bold risks like that, it really, everything, all the cards need to be set right for you before you do that And then Pritam Singh, maybe learning from Low Tia Kyang, is very disciplined about it.
I mean, learning from Low Tia Kyang in the sense Low Tia Kyang did what he needed to do because he had one seat and he went into a GRC, right? Now they have stronghold. And I mean, okay, if you look at it, of course, it would be nice to have this badass leader who's inspires you to the point you're like, wow, actually this guy can be leader of Singapore. But with it comes a lot of other questions.
Correct.
If you look at results-wise, technically now the WP, even from the last election, they have made progress. Because they have gone from having 10 of their candidates in Parliament to 12. Of course, 2 are NCMP, but that's progress. It's progress. And within their strongholds, they have either maintained or increased vote share, which is progress. So maybe it's one of the... You think about it, I know we are making a lot of comparisons with a leader of WP with what we do in our personal lives, but I mean, it's our scale, right? If we came out and said we want to be the biggest podcasters in Singapore, number one, or even at Help, this show, if we went to the comedians, we're like, we want to be the opening act for next year. Then the other comedians will be like, hey, fuck you okay? Yeah. But now it's almost like thankfully our approach in media so far, I think we generally have good relationships with a lot of content creators. And I think compared to some other content creators who you speak to individuals themselves, they know that, okay, that person's good, but kind of rubs the shoulders the wrong way.
And rubs people
wrong way. And I mean, I trust Pritam and anyone who's fighting in the opposition that they do want a better Singapore. That's why, when KJ said, why don't you take your gloves off? Why don't you use that to your advantage? During your rally speech, you didn't say anything like, this is unacceptable, the prices are unacceptable, what the PAP is doing. And he said, you need to fight like a street fighter, like the way Lee Kuan Yew fought. Which I don't agree with. And I think maybe that's inherent to Malaysian politics, where they don't have a GRC system. Everybody needs to fight for themselves. In Singapore, if you do that, even I'll be like, hey, in some way, Ravi Philemon is like that. And to me, you can...
he's saying a lot of things that are rubbing people the wrong way now.
Yeah. And he's taking his gloves off. Someone just passed away at NDP. Fuck that, man. I'm going to make a political message the day after. And you can argue that, okay his gloves off. But then you read it, you're like, I don't like that. I don't think people generally like that. And it makes people focus on... Because to really take hard punches, you need to make big promises. And that's where it feels like you're making promises based on what? But you look at the WPA, the one reason I think why they're getting more and more seats is because it's incremental. It's incremental. So can you fault them for doing that? Can you fault them for, not stepping out of the GRC when at the end of the day, the results still feels like a good campaign for them?
And when I talk about the, maybe feeling slightly disappointed that he didn't express more so-called ambition, it's because I think he is actually a person who's very capable for leadership. I think he has the oratory skills to really get people inspired, right? And we saw that at the rallies and everything also. And I would love that to translate into a longer term, bolder plan for what Singapore can or should be, right? But maybe he is also understanding what people want to hear now, and like what I said, Singaporeans are not ready for something, as opposed to saying that Singapore is ready for something. Say Singaporeans are not ready for this, and that's why he's saying Singaporeans may not be ready for a very bold opposition candidate coming forward and saying, I'm gunning for the top position as the Prime Minister. And like you say, it can only, maybe you have to wait for a certain window to do that. It can't be now, right? And I think he also talks about something very interesting that you rarely hear about, is what happens when candidates, when they screen candidates, right? Like, what phase in life are they most likely to join opposition politics? And he talks about the examples like Harpreet Singh, who he came in on his own accord because he's at this point in life where he's ready to do something, right? And we spoke to Harpreet, and we understand that as well. But he also spoke about the younger candidates, like who basically are gunning for C-level positions in the companies or starting young families, right? And those people are also very hard to convince to go into opposition politics because there is an opportunity cost there. So in some sense, maybe what he's saying also is that if he also comes in and says, I want to be prime minister, that there will be an opportunity cost to that in terms of lost votes, in terms of people thinking that, hey, this guy is out of touch with what people are saying. So he is very disciplined that way in saying that, I don't want to be prime minister. But whether it's right now or what, I don't know.
And I mean, even if you think about it, like if I were to ask myself, do I want another prime minister at this point? I will say no. Like there's
you
no
sucking on the teeth of the baby. You just got it on record here.
Just got it on record. You just take that as a clip. Just
do I want another prime minister? No. Literally.
I mean, because the truth is, like, there's a lot to criticize. There's a lot to be critical about. But generally, I would say in Singapore, it's still on the positive end of things. So, and I don't think it's I'm pro PAP saying that. No, that's the reality. And maybe that is what Pritam is alluding at. A lot of people maybe, even saying that, I don't want to change PM. I also feel like I'm being judged. But maybe deep down, that's what people feel. But you can still vote for opposition because you also believe in having more representation. But at the end of the day, I mean, in general, in general.
But also maybe because this is only like season 1 of the 4G leadership of PAP, right? We haven't even really seen how the 4G leadership is going to work together and everything. We've had glimpses of it, right? And I think we talked about this where, I'm sure Lawrence Wong has had to navigate internal politics within the PAP itself, the CEC and everything, to get to where he is now. And now he's there with a pretty strong mandate. And we're kind of curious to see how he does it. But if opposition comes and say, I'm gunning for your position, we're like, huh? You wait for season 2. You don't come in yet. You don't get Squid Game season 3, right?
Correct. But one thing, we speak about, Pritam being measured, risk-averse, the strategy. But then why he go on Malaysian podcast? He cannot step out of his GRC, but can step out of Singapore to go do podcast. Huh, Pritam? Why?
But he does. At the end, they do thank him for taking time off from his holiday in Malaysia to come, and then he left his wife and kids and everything. So maybe they have had a relationship as friends.
They've met before,
counterparts, and finally Pritam is coming forward to do this, And would you blame him for doing it with someone he's familiar with?
True
where he knows that
politician.
And they can't be puffmud like entities in Singapore can, right? So there's a bit less worry or struggle about what you do, because at the end of the day, I mean, whatever you want to say, right? We know that people in Singapore do watch Yellow Bud, right? And stuff that politicians have said on our podcast has been featured in mainstream media, has been taled about in Parliament.
Caused some issues also.
Caused ruffled feathers. So you do need to be a bit careful about these things. So maybe in some sense, like I was saying, maybe like Drake used to sing this. All these other podcasts were practice for the real deal.
That's what we play to ourselves every day.
Every day.
I think it's just me being personally salty. Of course, Pritam, we still want to have you on. Please come on. Our listeners have been asking also.
Correct. Just to clarify, that song I keep alluding to about Drake practice is actually a very funny thing, because it's basically about a guy who is in love with, I think, a stripper or something. And he just keeps trying to sing to convince himself that all these other guys will practice for me. So it's one of those songs that is very self-aware that you're sort of lying to yourself also. So in case people take what I say out of context.
You pro Drake, you pro Drake, is it?
No. Just in general that I'm taking that song so literally and mocking other podcasts or what. I am very self-aware that, KJ and his host, sorry, what? What's his name? Sharil. Very capable.
Yeah.
And, a
And
very
I mean, if they
podcast.
come to Singapore, it'd be great to have them as guests.
Yeah, we'd
man.
love to. Yeah, we'd love to.
It'd be great to have them as guests. Because, it is a good podcast. Go listen to it. But yeah, man.
But just further north of Malaysia, man, even more bigger waves are being made, right, by recent changes in the legislation that that will rock the socks of a lot of tourists as well, right? And what is this big news?
It is the news that the Thai government has announced a plan to tighten the rules on selling cannabis 3 years after it was decriminalized.
Yeah.
So in 2022, it was the first country in Southeast Asia to decriminalize the drug when it removed cannabis from the list of banned narcotics. So it was, to allow sales for medical rather than recreational use, but the move led to dispensaries. And I mean, if you look at articles, there are people who invested a lot. Apparently, the industry is worth $1 billion now.
Yeah.
And a lot of shops and all are like, hey, how can this be? Why? What the hell happened? And I know, like, this one going to be Shamugam. When we wake up in the morning, he's like, see? Yeah. See, I told you all.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a bunch of things that led to it. But were you surprised when you saw this?
Yes, and just coincidentally, apparently yesterday was World Drug Day.
Oh, is it?
International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. So K. Shanmugam posted something about it on his Facebook, right?
Yeah.
So I guess this announcement and all couldn't have come in a more opportune time, right?
Yeah.
Where essentially it's like, see, I told you all this would happen. But yeah, it is quite it's big news because I think, the people who are advocating for the legalization of cannabis and all have always pointed to, states in the US or parts of Europe that allow cannabis, right? And, we're rejoicing that Thailand now also has joined that list.
Yeah.
But it seems that all the social issues that come with recreational drug use have outweighed the pros of having a very big industry.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it feels like, I know when this was decriminalized, even I was like, wow. I haven't been to Bangkok since 2022, have you?
I have, yeah.
Do you recall seeing like cannabis and weed shops and dispensaries? Because apparently there are 11,000 registered cannabis dispensaries in Thailand.
Yeah. I do remember seeing shops, but it wasn't at the point where I was like smelling it everywhere in the air or anything. Yeah. I do recall seeing some shops, yeah.
Because apparently you can get brownies, gummies online. It can be delivered to your door within an hour.
Yeah.
And I think there's production in Thailand as well for weed. And I think people have like small community weed farms and all that. So it's interesting to see what happened. And it feels like it was more the fact that it was causing social issues locally, but even in countries like the UK, there were complaints that of the 170 plus cases of drug trafficking, let me see, it was so there's been a surge of young travelers who are bringing in Thai grown cannabis into the UK. Yeah, so last year in the UK, I think 173 people accused of smuggling cannabis, nearly all from Thailand, have gone through the court system in the UK and received sentences totaling 230 years.
Yeah.
So there was even pressure from the UK saying, hey, you guys got to stop this, man. So, and I think there was another issue around on the Cambodia border, and it feels like the moment they decriminalized it, I don't know what the policies and regulations were in place, but it feels like it was a free-for-all.
It's free-for-all, yeah. And also this is happening, the backdrop of all this happening is political scandal, right? And also upheaval in the country. Because I think the party that was supporting the more liberal laws on cannabis, I don't know if I'm butchering this, but the Boom Chai Thai has pulled out of the main coalition of the Thai government, right? And that has led to calls for the Prime Minister to also step down and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So there could be a political element to this where, because that party that supports the legalization of cannabis is out of the main coalition, then the other parties are trying to push through certain legislation that wouldn't have otherwise gone through.
Yeah.
So there's that based on that backdrop also kind of tells you that this could also be politically motivated.
I see. So I mean, it's surprising, but also not surprising because I'm sure there have been studies to show the effect of legalizing cannabis in Thailand.
Yeah.
It's not something that's ever been on the top of my mind. So when I see this, okay, honestly, I also feel like the decriminalising marijuana and all that, I don't know, like, first of all, I don't know enough, but it also feels like, wow, you really need a mature set of regulations and policies to allow that. I do think things like death penalty for people who smuggle drugs is, that one, a lot to debate. But the legalizing, that one also is not a clear, definite is the best thing.
Yeah.
Like for you?
No, especially if the society is still trying to understand, the use of recreational drugs and how it affects their populations.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, I guess a weird parallel would be how Singapore felt after PMDs were suddenly banned overnight. And it led to very viral moments like the Lampa moment, right?
Yeah.
Where there was a lot of confusion and like anger, right? That all this was taken away. But there was also the big debate about how unsafe some of our PMD riders were using their PMDs for and all that, right?
Yeah.
And because a lot of this initially was opened up as a free-for-all where anybody could use a PMD, no need for licensing or regulation or anything. And nothing was set in place. It just became chaotic. And the only solution that seemed to be acceptable to everyone, not even acceptable, the only solution that would be able to curb the negatives is to ban it, right? And maybe I'm looking at this and maybe there are parallels where these parameters weren't set in place for how to use these recreational cannabis drugs and all that, right?
Yeah.
And it became to this point where people saw, I don't know, children using recreational drugs and all. It got very concerning.
Yeah. So I guess as opposed to people thinking we are the again, it is more like I think these sort of things, like, I think it would be very exciting to explore the use of recreational drugs, but there needs to be so much regulation and policy discussions that happen because it cannot be a free-for-all. Because now it feels like if you want to open up a dispensary, you want to start a community weed farm, you can.
Yeah.
And that one just feels like, whoa. Same way with PMDs, if it's like it's totally free-for-all, it just causes issues.
Yeah.
So that's where I think these sort of things, which is the danger, right? Because now if this becomes an example, it's a definite bad idea, that one also feels like you're not being really fair, because is banning PMD is really the best idea? I would say no, it's just it wasn't regulated well.
Yeah.
Because there are benefits, especially now with like rising mental health issues, like evidence or like at least some evidence to show that, recreational use, there might be some impact. I'm just saying, like, we don't want to just close off solutions to what is a growing problem, right? But we just open it like that. Tough.
But that's why it's important to understand that there are political movements that are also making such that this is the window for them to do something, and they decided to do it.
Yeah, right? And I mean, generally, politics globally seems to be shifting towards more conservative, right? Yeah. So this one also feels like you would imagine conservative electorate, they would prefer these sort of regulations.
Yeah.
So,
but hopefully we have people listening to this in Thailand who can also tell us like how things are going there also, right?
Yeah, they'll be, bro, this is a pity, man. This sucks, man.
Yeah, that's true.
So I mean, still, surprising.
Yeah,
surprising.
But what has been your one Shiok comment this period, lah?
My one Shiok comment. Do you have yours?
I gotta pull it up. Yeah.
Okay. So let's see.
Yes.
I mean, one thing was a clarification provided by accidental jurists on the last episode, which I do appreciate. I think they pointed out that I think either one of us said that, Israel, when we were talking about the Israel-Iran thing, Israel has attacked a lot of the other Muslim countries and they are all allies of Iran. They pointed out that, no lah, like they are Arab countries that hate Iran. I think whoever said it, I think, maybe we could have given more nuance that the allies of Iran in those countries tend to be certain political or, counter, what's the rebel groups? No, extremist groups.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Hezbollah in Lebanon, you can't say Lebanon is an ally of Iran. I think that's very nuanced. But basically, Iran has allies in these countries. Does that mean those countries are allies? Not entirely, So I think, they just pointed out that, okay, that sort of clarifications are important. And then they gave some justification, which I appreciate. So that was my one short comment.
Okay.
For you?
My one short comment was on YouTube from Darren Noy, who basically, he was someone that I ran into at right before one of our shows at Happy Ever Laughter. And this person came and said, Terrence, we're here to support you. That's what I said when running to Terrence at the cafe at the Capitol just before the Help show on Monday. And then he said, Terrence mentioned that him and Harish are the funny ones and only all the other comedians are. I think I said that in a half jest or so, right? But it's true, the other comedians are really funny, right? It's a really, really tight show. But Darren says, truth be told, I thought Yellow Butt listeners are the only ones who would truly enjoy the entire Help show because the jokes from all the other comedians mostly revolve around Singapore politics, something that Yellow Butt listeners will be familiar with. And Terrence's and Harish's segment could really only be appreciated by Yellow Butt listeners given its super fast-paced and insider jokes about the K-word and Ride Out Road and all that. And then last part, he said, Terrence is super friendly, not only to say hello, but even to ask me for me and my girlfriend's names and give me a fist bump, allowing to enjoy a brief moment with a celebrity. Wow.
That was the one that I was outside when you met them, lah.
I was alone. I wasn't with you. Yeah.
Okay.
But shout out to Darren and his girlfriend for coming in to the show and enjoying it.
But he never said that we're also funny. He just said that it will be enjoyed by Yellow Butt listeners.
Funny lah, enjoy it.
But he didn't refute your comment lah.
No lah, I mean, I was just saying it half in jest, Harish. Don't use that against me lah.
Oh, solid.
Yeah.
So I mean, so far the feedback we've been getting from anyone who has come for the show, friends, family, teammates, generally very positive.
Yeah,
which is great.
Positive. It kind of opens up the possibilities of what podcasts can do and can be. I mean, this week we saw Pritam Singh go on a Malaysian podcast, but we also saw Yellow Butt perform as part of a comedy, a 9-day comedy fest, right?
Yeah, where it's literally comedians and like even one singer comedian.
Yeah. So I think it really maybe a bit like how independent candidates opened up the minds of people this election. Right?
I mean, our own minds also, right?
Our own minds.
Because we've been doing some live shows, but this is on a different scale.
Different scale, yeah.
So yeah, cool. And what is your one Shiok thing?
Do you have yours already?
Yes, okay. I do. It is one of the most unlikely channels you would imagine going viral, but it's called Predictive History. I'm sure some of our listeners may have come across this. It's basically like a Canadian-born Chinese Asian dude who's like a high school teacher, I believe. But he has been making videos over the past year or so that talk about geopolitical strategy with a focus on the Middle East and all that. And he went viral recently because 1 year ago he had a 1 hour plus video about why the US will attack Iran. It's called Geostrategy number 8, the Iran Trap. So, it's a 1 hour 5 video, but and I'm still walking through it. But the first video I watched that made me think, oh shit, this channel is damn interesting, was something that was uploaded 4 days ago. Geostrategy update number 2, World War III begins, let's game theory. And in it, he describes what he feels by using game theory is going to happen in the next few days or months. I mean, he's saying we are on a cusp of war and that the US will invade Iran using ground troops. And you think about it, you're like, why? But the way he explains it, of course, it's still a bit of an out there theory, but by using game theory, which he specializes in, I guess, in 22 minutes, he breaks it down so simply, right? It's just him talking to a camera in somewhere in his backyard or something.
Yeah.
And it's damn interesting because it makes you think, oh shit, when you think about geopolitics, basically he's saying game theory, you need to imagine there's a game being played by three parties who have different interests. I mean, I never took a class on game theory, but he said once you put in certain criteria, like what do each of them want, what is the best interest, they all converge on the US invading on the ground. And he did it in a way that makes me understand it.
Yeah.
So it's damn interesting. I think he's gotten like 100K followers in the past few days. And I mean, his description of his channel is what hooked me. In his Foundation series, Isaac Asimov proposed that the science of psychohistory will help humanity understand its past, predict its future, and control its present. Because I watched the show, right? And it's basically like...
Which show?
Foundation on Apple.
Foundation.
It got turned into a TV series.
Yeah.
And it's basically like 30,000 years into future, where there is 30,000 years or like 35,000 years of human data that people research, and they build these models that are almost so accurate that you can extrapolate what is going to happen to society. And that's psychohistory.
I see.
So I think he's kind of talking about that. So it's damn cool. Damn cool. Very cool.
I did watch one of his videos after you recommended it. Yeah.
Interesting. Right? Interesting.
Yeah, and really it's back to those YouTube days of like someone in the backyard just talking to the camera or whatever.
And he's so honest. He said, people have been messaging me that maybe I shouldn't record in places that are recognizable.
Yeah,
because my safety can be at threat. So he said, I'm just going to move around. Or something.
And his kids like running around the background and stuff. So it's quite charming.
So he uploaded a video yesterday. I haven't watched. Geostrategy Update 3, the Messianic calling.
Yeah.
Cool.
Interesting.
Cool.
My one Shiok Thing is also related to global politics and diplomacy. It's also a YouTube channel that is growing very fast. Very insightful takes on what is happening around the world. But it's called Diaper Diplomacy. And, if just understanding what it is, you read the description. Diaper diplomacy puts America's leaders exactly where they belong. In diapers, throwing tantrums using their own ridiculous quotes. No scripts, no adults, just real-life absurdity in its purest, most embarrassing form. So, I'm not a big fan of AI content, right? But when AI content is used to accentuate real life as it is here, it's amazing. So what this channel does is it takes a lot of the most heated, the most ridiculous quotes or exchanges between American politicians that you see on TV, and he uses AI to make baby avatars of each politician. And the one that was really funny was the recent exchange between Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz, talking about Iran, and it got quite heated. But when they do it as with baby faces and everything, it's just, I don't know, it's 10 times funnier.
And it looks like them. That's where the AI comes in, right? It's amazing.
Even with beards and everything, it still looks like them. Yeah.
And even when Trump swore on camera,
they did that.
It's so good, man.
Yeah. So I don't know. This is AI. This is what AI should be used for, right?
It's so good. It's so damn good.
Yeah. That's funny.
Cool, man.
Cool. Wow. All right. So, after this week, we're done with Happy Ever Laughter Party. Yeah. But we got a good series of episodes coming up soon.
Yeah. And I mean, just a lot of ideas on what we can do live going forward. So, going to be some epic shit. Yeah. But yeah, if you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, our newsletter. And if you want to work with us,
email us at contact@ministryoffunny.com or just check out ministryoffunny.com.
Sweet. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll talk to y'all soon.